Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Building on Chain podcast. Today I have with me Rahat. He is a developer advocate, co-founder of Protocol Explorer, and a retired rapper. Hi, Rahat.
The retired rapper had to go in there.
How would you introduce yourself if you had to, like at an event or a conference?
It depends usually. Like I think in conferences, it's changed a lot over the past couple of years. Like I used to do the whole like, yeah, I'm a retired hip hop artist and all that, and now I'm just like, I'm too cringe for that now. Um, so I don't really include that as much. I usually just tell folks that I'm a DevRel. Always happy to start talking about anything that folks are building. Figure out how I can help and all that stuff.
That sounds good and like understandable. And so the first question I'm going to ask is to learn more about like, your background and your journey. What was the first thing you ever built on chain, and what chain?
Yeah. The very first, so like whenever I get started, I guess, on any type of like new tech, I try to do something a little bit fun, at least for me. So like the very first like on-chain, like I guess dApp or smart contract that I had ever kind of like fully deployed was it was this contract that really just very simply tracked a Pokemon battle between a Charizard and a Lugia, and that was just like how I initially started like learning about Solidity, just like the basics of like smart contract development and things like that. And I believe that was actually deployed on the Rinkeby testnet, which RIP no longer exists.
RIP Rinkeby. But yeah, that's amazing. This was like obviously before the merge, if we're talking about like Rinkeby. So that's the first thing that you ever built. What's the coolest thing that you've ever built since you've been in like Web3?
The coolest thing. That's hard. I guess it kind of changes from time to time, but I guess like at least the thing that I had the most fun with and like kind of inspired like a lot of the different things that I'm doing right now. So last year during like the idea kind of came about during ETH Denver, and then we kind of like played with it during ETH Tokyo, was just like having this kind of a on-chain, not like on-chain AI, but like an AI helper for like DevRels, to like help you with docs, help you with content and things like that. And it had some sort of on-chain component to it where it helped like track data and things like that. Ultimately, we didn't, like me and a couple of my friends, we didn't actually continue working on that. The reason that I cite that as like kind of a big thing that I've not only enjoyed, but I think is one of the coolest things, is because like it's really shaped a lot of like the other things I've been building recently.
Okay, that sounds really cool. Even though you didn't like follow through with it, it was a really nice experience and it's been really helpful to you moving forward. Still on building. What was the last thing you built and when?
The last thing I built was probably like a Hello World type of smart contract using Move. So been learning a lot of like the Move programming language. Going to be working on a lot of stuff in that side of things and sharing a lot of content there. So yeah, that was the last thing I built, just to get myself situated in the Move language.
Yeah, no.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, really cool. I've been curious about Move, to be honest, and Movement Labs, and I think if I remember correctly, you have something like a build-a-thon for games ongoing. Could you share more about what Move is? Movement Labs, opportunities for builders, support for builders, and where to get started.
Yeah, definitely. I guess so I recently started at Movement Labs. I think as of recording this last week. So definitely still very, very new into the ecosystem, but like super excited and definitely, going to be sharing a lot of resources to help folks. So Movement Labs right now, we offer a couple of products, but like the main product that is coming out very soon is an L2 on top of, so an L2 on ETH, but rather than being just like a regular sort of like EVM, it's going to be using the Move VM. A lot of like what you build on it, you'll be able to build using the Move programming language, which, if you're familiar with it, is used on Aptos and Sui chains. The Move language was originally created by the Facebook team when they were building out like their VM or Libra project for when they were initially going to go into the blockchain side of things before the SEC said, no, you can't do that. And Gary ruined all of their fun. But yeah, like that kind of like broke out into like Aptos and Sui. And we're on the Movement Labs side kind of like building an L2 rather than like another L1 as Aptos and Sui have done. Like one of the prime things that we're hoping to achieve is like bringing like the Solana user experience onto Ethereum. Just faster transaction, lower gas costs obviously. And yeah, you touched on a couple things there of like, you know, different resources and things that we're providing for people to get started. One of the things that we're doing is what's called the Battle of Olympus hackathon, which is open to anyone to come in and try out for to sign up for the next month or so. I actually shared an idea that I had for Battle of Olympus, which I think is what you were referring to, which was like a game that can be built on chain. We've got other hackathons going as well, and I'll be sharing like a bunch of cool like educational resources if you kind of like keep up and follow with me on socials and whatever. So definitely look out for this
Yeah,
stuff.
no, sounds good. And like now I'm curious to learn more about the game. If you could share a little bit more about like what exactly it is you're thinking.
Yeah, definitely. So I've always wondered about, so one of my favorite games from some time ago was like the Mega Man Battle Network series. So if you're not familiar, the Mega Man Battle Network series is basically you play as this character Mega Man. Mega Man is this like virtual character inside of like a little device. I think they call them PETs or something like that. I forget exactly. But basically you can connect to the internet using that device, and then you control Mega Man as he like traverses through the internet, fighting viruses and like evil people and stuff online. But like you're basically like in the metaverse. You have these like chip cards that represent like different weapons that you can like attach to Mega Man, or like other people can attach like their what are called like navis, which are these like avatar things. And so like you can give your character weapons through these chips. You can buy online using this currency called Zenny, and then you just play the game and go through the story and stuff like that. But like if you really kind of like break down all the pieces of it, this is basically like a metaverse. The chips are basically can be like NFTs that you can purchase. Like the chips have like different levels of rarity to them, and it's like everything about an NFT is like embedded within the whole like chip system. And then obviously like Zennies could be like ERC20 tokens or whatever. Like I've always felt like when I kind of came into Web3, like I always thought back on that game and I was just like, this game was Web3 before Web3 was a thing. Like all these different elements of like what we see in Web3 right now exist. And you could build this entire thing, like this Mega Man Battle Network, in like actual real life now. And I think if you combine it like with a lot of the advances that are coming up in like AI, you could have like all these AI agent kind of game characters as well within the games that you can play against. So I think I was just like, the other day I was just like tweeting about like, someone please build this.
No, I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing. And if you're watching this, you can be that someone, like, please build, someone please build it. Yeah.
I will be your first customer. I will buy so many NFTs on your platform. You will make so
This
much
is like
money off of
literally
me.
product market fit. You have your first buyer. So get started hacking. So yeah, so I wanted to ask you about like Protocol Explorer. I'm really like excited about Protocol Explorer, and you've been doing a lot, and you have a lot like planned. So can you tell us about like what Protocol Explorer is? What are some of the current plans and initiatives, and then how can people get involved and get started?
Yeah, I would say ultimately Protocol Explorer is shaping out to be a Web3 developer media company. I say company with like a grain of salt. It's my side project, but there's definitely a lot of like content creation and like media type of things that we're pumping out from Protocol Explorer. It started off as just being this live stream that I would do on a weekly basis with different DevRels and devs in the Web3 space. And like during the live stream, what we would do is like these folks would come onto the stream. They would teach me a little bit about their specific product or SDK or API or whatever. And afterwards, we would see if we can like build something small within that hour using it. Now, depending on like the actual tool, some of the episodes vary a little bit. Like sometimes I'm in there doing a bit of coding, and you see me kind of like struggling through building out something live. It's like I subject myself to like a coding interview live once a week on occasion, for no reason at all other than to torture myself. But it's people have enjoyed that for one reason or another, and so we kind of like continued doing that. So, yeah, so it's really to give the illusion that not. So it's really to give people like the experience that what it feels like to like learn something new in Web3, and that's kind of like the premise of that show. So as we've kept doing that, a couple things have been built underneath it. Like there's a website, which is kind of still in progress. I could use some help on finishing it out if anyone wants to help. But basically, it's like an encyclopedia, right? And what it's meant to be is like sort of like a one-stop shop, one place where you can explore what are the different Web3 protocols available to you, what are the different developer tools that are available from these places, links to their documentation, links to articles and tutorials that have been written about these folks. We're also trying to do courses. So we recently recorded a course that'll be coming out very soon.
Sounds really cool. I am really interested in the courses you're making, like the React to Web3 course. I know that you have been I know that you have been doing work on it. So can you give us like a sneak peek of what to expect? And then maybe a little bit of background to why you decided to make that course in particular.
Yeah, definitely. So the React to Web3 course, it's more focused on Web2 developers who are curious about Web3. As the name kind of suggests, it's more for like React developers, right? So React developers who are very interested in like learning more about blockchain, who want to understand how they can start building dApps. There's not really a component to the course where you build your own smart contracts. We kind of go over smart contracts in general, how to read them, how to interact with them, but it's not a smart contract development course. It's more like focused on front end technology, like how you can take existing front end tech and leverage those skills to like be a Web3 developer. Like our whole thing is like if you're a React developer, then you're already a Web3 developer. You just need to pick up a couple tools to get started. The reason we chose like React specifically, one, just like the popularity, both within the Web3 space and outside of the Web3 space. Almost like every company that you apply for in the Web3 space, if you're a front-end dev, you'll see that they're either using like React, Next.js, or some other React-based framework or whatever. So you need to know React. And I had initially kind of like honed in on this because this was exactly my experience and like how I got into Web3. So I was a front-end engineer in, I guess, the Web2 space before I came into Web3. And so that I realized just like, you know, for people wanting to come into Web3, like my kind of journey into it was a little bit easier than like picking up a new language, learning Solidity, learning smart contract development. I did do that in addition to like my front end work, but you don't like if you wanted to just like step into Web3 and like contribute to it, it is pretty easy to do so, just being as like a front end engineer.
No, it sounds amazing, and you successfully did that transition. So who better to teach and guide more Web2 developers to be onboarded properly? So yeah, I really love that. Just from like the conversation we've been having, it's clear that you do a lot in Web3 and most likely out of Web3. So what does a typical day in your life look like?
A typical day in my life, it's pretty different every day. It's usually, I mean, in the morning I'll like check Slack and Telegram, because of course in Web3 you have to have like a million different ways of communicating with each other, or Discord. Just for like to figure out if there's like any fires or things that I need to address ASAP. I generally get tagged stuff overnight, so while I'm sleeping, and then I'll wake up and like, okay, now I know exactly what to start my day with. Stuff that I've been tagged in. Sometimes it'll be doing content like this. Sometimes it'll be, like diving into the Move language, or building out like different proof of concept, applications and things for developers to like learn from. And sometimes it'll be meetings and meetings and meetings. That's an unfortunate, important part of the day as well. And then every once in a while, every couple months or so, I'll be in some different part of the world at a conference or something like that. So yeah, it's DevRel. I don't think there is a typical day in DevRel, because I think like people will give you like very, very wildly varied answers depending on their company and like what they're focusing on at the moment. So it could be a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I know it's like a trick question in DevRel to ask, what does a typical day? Because there's no typical day, but I like to ask just to see how people answer. And so moving on from that, outside of like Web3 and meetings and workshops, what are some of the things you enjoy doing outside of work and Web3? Also, do you still like secretly write raps like in your journal? Like even though you don't show anybody?
Once in a while I might just like, write a couple things here and there. I've got like my keyboard, my MIDI keyboard here, so I'll start making beats every once in a while. So like music is definitely still a part of my life. I've come to the point where like I don't do it for other people anymore. I just do it more just for myself as a way of like stress relief or things like that. And it's just like an outlet for me to, just have a little bit of fun without like attaching any expectations to it. So from that perspective, I think, I do music, but it's just for me. I mean, other than that, like I have 2 daughters, so I try to spend as much time as I can with them. That they're the biggest part of my life, and there's always my video games. Can't let those go as well.
Okay. So. I love that. And I had a feeling like you probably still do music, but I love that you've like come to the point where you do it just for you, because that's what's most important. So yeah, the next set of questions are going to be slightly spicier. And so the first one is, have you gotten rugged before?
Yes, I have gotten rugged before. I've gotten rugged a couple of times. So, I mean, like, before I even got into Web3 professionally, I've been in Web3 as, like, a speculator slash degen. So, I've experimented with, like, questionable projects, I guess, in Web3. And I've definitely lost quite a bit of money during that speculation and Just like, this is cool. I'm just gonna try this out, see what happens, and I just lost a few $100s. No, but I've never been like rugged to the point where like I've lost a lot because I've never one, I'm poor. Two, I have never like put in a lot more than I've been comfortable with, I guess, in like these different things in Web3. So so yes, I've gotten rugged, but not to the point where it's like ruined me, I guess. So I've been like okay on that end. When I was like learning Solidity and like going into smart contract dev before like I fully went into the DevRel side of things, I did work anonymously as like a Solidity engineer for a couple different NFT projects. Those ended up, I got rugged on that. Like despite me doing some of the work, I never got paid. Um, and I'm pretty sure the people who minted the NFT all got rugged too. So there was always issues in some of those places. I stepped away after I saw a lot of that happening from like doing any more anon Solidity work for like NFT projects. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm really sorry to hear that like you got robbed from a project that you worked with. But I guess that that's kind of the risk with that kind of work. Then next question, what is your favorite Web3 meme?
my favorite Web3 meme. I would say anything that uses like the mid curve meme. It's like, um, I guess one of the more recent ones. I don't know if it's one that's as popular, but like a lot of people have been talking about like one, you get into Web3, you're kind of like, oh, let me try a bunch of things, build stuff, and then the mid curve thing is like there's like a very specific way you have to build things. There's all these um, intellectual posturing that happens. And this is me throwing shade at the entire Ethereum community, and I think a lot of ETH maxis will be mad at me, but it's true. We have a lot of nonsense intellectual posturing within the Ethereum community as a whole, and I think it's very, very bad for the ecosystem. Um, Sometimes you just have to go and build stuff that makes sense that people enjoy, and stop being all gatekeepy with all your, I guess, super intellectual thoughts on ZK and like how specifically to do certain things and how specifically to scale. Just try stuff and build things is kind of like my whole thing. So like I feel like that falls on like the mid curve
Yeah,
meme.
no, it definitely does. Final set of questions. If you were to build a dream hackathon or whatever project, what would you build and who would be your squad that you would call to build it?
Hmm. Probably want to build that Mega Man game. Um, if I just had like unlimited resources to do it. But like if I were to look at like taking that hackathon project into like building it into a company, um, I'd want to have like Natter on my team, just so like I would never have to worry about VC funding because we could just like shove him in front of everybody and be like, fund us, and then probably other people I've been working with, more recently, like me and Tony, um, Tony Orlando. We're on a lot of like different things together. Raza from Scroll. So we could all build out different things. That I think that would be a good team to have.
Oh, so,
Feel free.
what's your Web3 hot take that you could get cancelled for?
I think the majority of L2s will fail, including the bigger ones that exist today. Most of them are copy pasted from each other, have no real value. Like, I think like Vitalik recently put out this like blog post around like L2s being like a cultural thing. But the thing is like the majority of L2s right now have no real culture. There's no reason for them to be a thing. They're just like all general purpose chains. And I think I don't really see a future for some of them, no matter how big they might be right now. And there's just no real value add from a lot of these chains. Like, I think And I think that goes along with like not only different L2s, but like L3s. Like I don't think needs to be a thing right now. I think it does more detriment to the overall user experience than it does in like actually helping things. I think we have an issue in Web3 where like kind of jump the gun and try to like build these things that we're just not really ready to have yet, or like there's not really a need at the moment to have. Like I've seen a lot of arguments for L3s being like, oh, these could be specific app chains or whatever. Sure, they can be app chains. I don't think they should be an L3. They should probably just like be their own separate L2 or something on ETH. I think we should actually figure out all the problems that L2 has. Like a lot of my opinions, I probably sometimes lead me to believe I should have like been in the Solana ecosystem. It's still love ETH. So as much as I agree with like many of the things that Solana folks say about Ethereum, I'm still very much in this ecosystem, and I do want to see it succeed. It's where I started. It's where I would love, for things to like kind of continue. But yeah, majority of L2 suck and they'll die at some point.
Wow, that is a really hot take, but I appreciate and respect your honesty. So this next question is in two parts. What is the best and the worst advice that you've received in the Web3 space, or as a developer, or in general?
The best advice I think I've ever gotten. So this was actually, I guess, like career advice I got. So when I was transitioning into engineering, so like before engineering, I was working at different startups in like the customer success, customer support side of things. And I went to like a coding boot camp, learned, did a little bit of self-teaching, built out some stuff. And I was going to like different conferences and stuff. And that's when like the concept of DevRel actually got introduced to me. So this was a few years back, and I immediately wanted to go into DevRel. Like I was like, okay, I really enjoy the things that folks are doing at these conferences. I love the way that they're teaching. I love the way that they're evangelizing all these different techs. This is something I could see myself doing. And the advice that I had gotten at that point was like, you could do that, but it would probably be better if you took a few years, be an engineer, ship some products, work on different teams, and then like do kind of like DevRel activities and stuff on the side, and then ease yourself into DevRel from there. It'll be more helpful for your career. It'll let you kind of identify much better with developers and like help them in a significantly better way. So I took that advice. I did that, exactly that. Like I was an engineer for a while, worked in TradFi, worked at a couple of startups, mostly as like a front end engineer, did a little bit of like back end full stack stuff too, but most of it was all like front end stuff. During that time, and like I kept that advice. Like I still did some DevRel activities. Like I would go to meetups and conferences, I would give talks, I would create content online. I actually went back to the coding bootcamp that I graduated from and like helped out as like a assistant teacher, started teaching some of like the different lessons and courses there. That all like was super helpful in like me developing my career and like developing the experience that I needed to like just like be a better DevRel, I think. And it took some time, took a few years, but I think that was like some of the best advice that I had ever gotten. It was definitely helpful for my career, and like definitely where I am now is, definitely attributed a lot to that. In terms of worst advice, would be like anyone who's ever tried to shove a roadmap plan in front of me for learning how to become a developer or do XYZ thing. I've tried a couple of those. They are all mostly very tailored to one type of person, and it's usually the type of person who like created them. So it's not really like thought out in a way that includes different people and different types of experiences that come along with like learning. So like I've just come to the point where if I see like, oh, 90-day roadmap to becoming a web3 developer thing, I immediately mute or block the account, because generally that's just like full on grifting or full on like nonsense, and usually from someone who's never actually been in web3 professionally or even in development professionally. Those tend to be like, those were some of the first things I followed in my journey. 100% of them have not worked out for me, and probably don't work out generally for a lot of people. I would say be careful of like what you kind of like, anytime someone makes you a promise that like you learn this and you will definitely make money, generally that's some type of grift, some type of lie. Like the way that I usually try to like guide people is like, look, this is what I did. Take the parts of it that help you. Not everything that I did is going to help. Not everything that I on my journey is going to be something that is useful for you. But you can still learn from it. You can take the parts of my journey that make sense, and try to like recreate it or retry it, or look at the experiences of like many different people who have actually been able to be successful. And I think that's kind of a better approach.
Yeah, I love that advice. And I can also definitely relate to trying a bunch of these roadmaps that never worked out. My final question to you, Rahat: who's someone you would like to see on the podcast?
Let's see. Should have Tony and just like grill him on like all the things he's been doing. He's been doing a lot of cool stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that recommendation. I'll keep him in mind. And Tony, you've been tagged. Okay, so thank you so much, Rahat. We're at the end of the episode. I look forward to seeing your React to Web3 course when it comes out, and all the cool content, workshops, and projects you'll be working on with Movement Labs, and just in general, because I think you're a really cool person.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on the podcast.